Hello, everyone. This is APO Sports, and we're continuing our series for the predictions, the 2025 predictions for the Indiana Fever players. And today we continue with Sophie Cunningham. So she's one of the Fever newcomers. She came to the Indiana Fever via trade. She was part of the trade that sent Nalissa Smith essentially to the Dallas Wings, and then the Fever gained Sophie Cunningham. There were some other things in the deal, but that was pretty much the the big trade, the big moves were pretty much Sophie Cunningham to the Fever, Nalissa Smith to the Dallas Wings. Some people were maybe in social media saying whether or not the Fever had gotten enough of a return for Nalissa Smith, but in all honesty, and this is not to disparage Nalissa Smith in any way, but to me, that was addition by subtraction. Just when it comes to that Fever team, just Nalissa Smith never fit that system. So her not playing at all, it's just beneficial to the Fever, just not having her on the roster. But you still get Sophie Cunningham, who is an excellent role player. She's 6'1", 170 pounds. She is, an enforcer, good defense, good threes, pretty much a 3-and-D type of player. So she's going to help the Fever tremendously. However, she does represent, she presents a challenge for the team and the coaches and how they use both her and Lexie Hull. And I'm not trying to make this another Lexie Hull video, but we're going to spend a little bit of time comparing both Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull. Sophie Cunningham she played 6 years for the Phoenix Mercury. She was drafted with the Mercury, and then she spent 6 seasons there. The crazy thing is that the trajectory of both Lexie Hull and Sophie Cunningham extremely similar. Like if you look at the first 3 seasons, so we're gonna do that. We're gonna compare the first 3 seasons of Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull, pretty much the same. I mean, identical. They are virtually the same player. And that's one thing that we're gonna find out. They're both 6'1". They play the same position, and they encounter the same struggles in the first 3 years, the first 3 seasons in the WNBA, specifically that second year. So if we look at the second year for Lexie Hull, and that's the one that she struggled the most, that she had the most issues, it seems like, adjusting. It was also the worst year for Sophie Cunningham, and also the numbers are identical in that sense as well. Third season, slight improvement, just like Lexie Hull. And then fourth year, she was given the opportunity to blossom. There was no one else in her way. She was able to even be inserted into the starting lineup and started to do well. Fourth, fifth, and sixth season in Phoenix. But contrast that to Lexie Hull. Now you have another player who brings pretty much the same thing to the table. And now it's a matter of who or which player is going to get the minutes off the bench, the bulk of the minutes off the bench. There's always at least one player, like a 6-man, or in this case, a 6th player coming off the bench that gets the significant amount of minutes, and both of them playing the same position, pretty much. That represents some challenges for the coaching staff, because you want to play both of those players, and you don't want to stifle or stop the development of either one of those players, right? Sophie Cunningham going to her 7th season. She's now, I think, 27 years old, 27, 28. So she's about to hit her prime, right? So I don't think she has any interest in reducing her role, even though her role is already going to be reduced from what it was in Phoenix. And Lexie Hull, can her role be reduced anymore? So I don't know. This is going to be the interesting challenge in talking about both players. So, like I said, they're essentially the same player. Both of them 6'1", play the same position, but Sophie Cunningham is it's like 15 pounds heavier, meaning that on the defense, it's harder for offensive players to bully her. right? But in that same token, Lexie Hull is faster and she plays at a higher pace. So we're going to be talking about that too, because I know that there's been some Caitlin Clark fans who have quickly shifted over to the Sophie Cunningham train, but I know that they always uh, they always try to ask for faster pace, faster pace. Let's play faster, 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 and that's how Caitlin Clark likes to play: is faster, faster, faster. If you want to play fast, then you want Lexie Hull in the lineup because she's faster, right? I think she used to be track and field. I think in school, she's a really really good runner, fast runner. Can get up and down the court. Now, Sophie Cunningham can finish around the rim with a little bit higher efficiency than Lexie Hull. So those are the contrasts, but it's not much. Now, if you ask me, this is all before getting to the stats. We're about to get to the stats. I know I'm rambling a little bit. I already got yelled out for rambling too much. But the ideal situation, like me, right? My preference. I'm not suggesting that this is going to happen or what the Indiana Fever should do. This is just what I would do. And I would love to have, because those are valuable players, high impact players. I would love to have each of them on the court at all times, right? I want either Lexie Hull on the court at all times or Sophie Cunningham at the court at all times, right? And then, just kind of mixture the rest of the roster around having a Lexie Hull and a Sophie Cunningham because they bring tons of value, and then other players can kind of like complement each other and do it that way. I think this coaching staff and this team, they're gonna have to get creative with how you're gonna utilize this team. But anyways, let's stop it here. Let's do some comparisons real quick. I love comparisons. Here's just interesting number. This is on Sophie Cunningham real quick. So I wanted to highlight pace. Last year was 96. Overall pace was 96.59, and true shooting percentage 61.8. Now we look at Lexie Hull. So these are Lexie Hull numbers. So pace a little bit higher, slightly higher, 98.09, and true shooting about the same, so 60.4. So they're both pretty efficient, but Lexie Hull does play a little bit faster. And then we want to look at Caitlin Clark to compare it against that. This is Caitlin Clark. Her pace, of course, higher than both of them, 98.74. So who do we want? Now these are the numbers for both Sophie Cunningham. The comparison: Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull from their first 3 years. Their first 3 years in the league, in the WNBA. First 3 years, Sophie Cunningham in Phoenix. The first 3 years for Lexie Hull in Indiana. So, and we'll look at the totals and then per 36 and so on. So points pretty much the same. I mean, they played pretty much the same amount of minutes. So if we look at that, Lexie Hull played a little bit more minutes the first 3 years. Points, Lexie Hull a little bit more. Turnovers about the same. Blocks the same. Steals a little bit better for Lexie Hull. Assists a little bit more for Lexie Hull. Rebounds, Lexie Hull. Free throws, Lexie Hull. Free throw attempts, I mean, I don't know. She got to the line a little bit more. Again, justifiable if you play more minutes. Efficiency or effective field goal percentage, definitely that's a significant number in Sophie Cunningham's favor. 3-point percentage, I mean, even for the first 3 years, pretty comparable. Twos, again, Sophie Cunningham finishes around the rim much better than Lexie Hull. And pretty much everything else is the same. And if we look at 36 minutes, you just see how similar these numbers are as far as the first 3 years in the league for them. And then if we look at the second season, as far as their numbers and their struggles, then you see the minutes per game pretty much similar again. Points, edge, Sophie Cunningham, this is second year. Blocks, Lexie Hull. Steals, Lexie Hull. So it seems here to me that Lexie Hull is just a little bit better defender. Assists, Lexie Hull a little bit better distributor. Rebounds, Lexie Hull appears to be a better rebounder. Free throw percentage, it seems like Lexie Hull did struggle from the free throw line on her second year. Effective field goal percentage, again, Sophie Cunningham. But look at the 3-point shooting. I mean, Sophie Cunningham is an excellent 3-point shooter. I think she had about a 37% last season. But look, her second year, almost as bad as Lexie Hull. And I know she gets criticized so much for this 3-point percentage, but she can pick it right back up. It's not. This is not who Lexie Hull is. Just like this is not who Sophie Cunningham was her second year. Then, so 2 point again. We talked about that and the difference between that, and maybe we can look at some advanced numbers. True shooting second year, whatever the case may be. But let's look at their numbers for last year and then compare them that way. Okay. So just comparing them for the WNBA, the 2024 WNBA season, because that's going to be the fresher data for us to have an idea of what kind of player do we have, right? So if you look at points per game, and this is per 36 minutes because Sophie Cunningham played 8 more minutes than Lexie Hull last year, so you can't do totals. But per 36, Sophie Cunningham with an edge. Turnovers, Sophie Cunningham with an edge. Blocks, Lexie Hull. Well, I mean turnovers that Lexie and an edge to Sophie Cunningham, and that she turned it over less times than Lexie Hull. Not saying here that Sophie Cunningham had more turnovers. Blocks, Lexie Hull, steals, just I mean pretty much equal. Assist, Sophie Cunningham. Rebounds, Sophie Cunningham. Free throw percentage, Sophie Cunningham. 3-point percentage, Lexie Hull had a crazy year shooting the three. And then 2-point, which is huge, more consistent shooting from Sophie Cunningham from 2, finishing around the rim. Field goal percentage, actually Lexie Hull was better only because of that 3-point shooting craziness that she had. So, those are kind of the numbers in comparing the two players right now. I mean, true shooting, they shoot the same. They're really virtually the same player. Even the usage rate, everything is equal. It's just who do you prefer to have on the court, or can you have them both? If is there a world that exists where you can have them both? So let's talk about the minutes, because this is the biggest thing I think for projections, and especially when it comes to Sophie Cunningham. I'm not gonna change anything that I did up here for Lexie Hull, so I'm maintaining the 20.5 minutes per game. So what does that mean for here? But in order to do that, I think we need to have a pretty good idea as to the minute distribution. So I'm gonna use the NBA 2K tool to do some minute distribution. Here we go. I like to use this NBA 2K, just messing up with rotations, and then you can kind of do minutes distribution and stuff like that. So we'll see. I mean, in a perfect world for me, right? I mean, this is me, my preference as a fan. I would love to give both Lexie Hull and Sophie Cunningham 20 minutes per game. Now, I know that's challenging. I know that's hard. I know that may not be feasible, and I may be crazy. So, okay, I mean, that might be realistic, but I'm trying to work a scenario in which that happens. So if we give Caitlin Clark 32 minutes, I think that's fair. She played way too many minutes last year. She played 35 minutes. That should not be the case this year. So 32. I mean, if you play, the more minutes you play, yes, of course, you could potentially get more stats, more points, and triple doubles and things like that. But you're also more prone to turnovers and fatigue, and you're not as sharp when you're playing that much, and you become predictable with the defense and everything like that. So it's better for players generally to have a bigger rest. So 32 minutes we can project, and then we can project Kelsey Mitchell to get 31 minutes. I think that's fair. DeWanna Bonner, so she did play about 31 minutes last year. I think that's coming down, right? I think DeWanna Bonner right now, she's 38 years old or about to be 38 or something like that. So do you really want to give her a super big workload? So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if her minutes actually come down a little bit more, maybe in that 24, 25 minutes per game. I think last year, Nalissa Smith played 24 minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually in that realm more so than not, just to keep her fresh. Just whenever she comes into the game, that you can utilize her so that she can go lights out. Natasha Howard, same thing. She plays fast. She plays strong. A lot of defensive effort, at times a lot of offensive effort. So last year, again, she played 31 minutes, but this year she's going to be 33, and a whole different system. I think a little bit less than 30 minutes is probably appropriate. So I don't know. So if we have Bonner at maybe 24, I think Howard at 26 or something like that. I think this is a little bit more realistic for both of them. Instead of both of them shouldn't play 30 minutes per game. And not when you have such a talented bench in your team. Aaliyah Boston, I mean, the only three players, and I think I said this in my lineup analysis and projections, is that the only three players that should play more than 30 minutes this season is Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston. That's it. So I'm giving 30 minutes to Aaliyah Boston. Here is where it gets crazy. And yeah, they still have Tammy Benley and Christy Wallace here. The thing with 2K here is that they don't have the Valkyrie, so there's no way to put Tammy Benley. So the Golden State Valkyrie don't exist in 2K. So okay, so we have here with Turner. Right now I have no minutes for Turner, and I actually think that her playing time is going to be more dependent on matchups. I don't think she's going to play every day. I could be wrong, but I just don't think she's going to play every day. The same could potentially be said for Dantas, and although I'm a huge fan of Damaris Dantas, uh, I think the matchup, it's going to depend whether you need offense or whether you need defense, and then they'll come in to do that. But I just don't see. First of all, I don't see Stephanie White having a 10 men. I say 10 men or a 10 player rotation any given game. Most teams in the NBA and even in the WNBA in the past, they use 3 players consistently off the bench any given game. So you have a 8 or 9 at the most, a 9 player rotation, but 10 player rotation. I mean, that's rare. This Fever team could be it, but who are you taking minutes away from? So I think that's the challenge. I think Sydney Colson could play 8 minutes. The 8 minutes that Caitlin Clark would be resting, but I don't think it's necessary. Like, I don't think just because you need a point guard that you need, positionally, that you need to have her on the floor. I think Kelsey Mitchell, you could do Kelsey Mitchell, Lexie Hull, Sophie Cunningham, Aaliyah Boston, Dewana Bonner, some combination of that. You don't need a point guard necessarily. And if anything, Boston, I mean, if you really want to develop Aaliyah Boston, you want to turn her into Nikola Jokic, then make her more of a playmaker. Run the offense through Aaliyah Boston without a point guard in the lineup. I mean, that's how the Denver Nuggets do it. They don't have. Is Jamal Murray a point guard? No, he's not. Then you have Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, and Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. And then with Nikola Jokic, you don't have any point guards. Jamal Murray's a shooting guard. Aaron Gordon's a power forward, small forward. Michael Porter Jr. is a small forward, power forward. Christian Brown is a small forward, power forward. Shooting guard, small forward. You don't need to have a point guard to run anything necessarily. And I'm not saying she doesn't play. I'm saying, again, matchup dependent and what the actual situation calls for. I think the bulk of the minutes in the bench needs to go to these 3 players right here. So in a given day, you have Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Dewana Bonner, Natasha Howard, Leah Boston, Lexie Hull, Sophie Cunningham, and Damaris Dantas. Situation dependent. If you need defense, you need some ball handling, something like that, then you bring Colson and Turner. That's me. Maybe I'm crazy. I'm just making YouTube videos. I don't have the responsibility that the coaching staff is going to have. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just over here daydreaming, but that's what I think. Yeah. So anyway, this is just a quick display of minute distribution. So let's go back to Sophie Cunningham. So the challenge here, of course, is the minutes per game, and you don't want to hurt either player. You don't want to, I don't know. This is so hard, but yeah, you don't want to hurt any player. You don't want to stifle anyone's development. For Sophie Cunningham, the last 3 years, she's been averaging 27 minutes per game. This is actually the less minutes in the last 3 years, because before that, in 2023, it was 29 minutes per game. In 2022, 29 minutes per game. So she's been seeing an increase in minutes, and she's used to the big workload, right? I really don't know. To me, it's a toss up. I can't really tell you that one player is better than another. I mean, you just have to see them uh, and how they play with each other and how their impact, how they make an impact. It's possible that Stephanie White will simply ride the hot hand. So, if, say, the first substitution that happens is in the first quarter, maybe they bring both of them in at the same time, gauge who's got it, who's got the effort, who's got the shooting touch, who's making an impact on defense, all of these things. And then based on that, you're going to allocate more minutes to one than the other. Uh, Unless there's some sort of game plan in which you do what I suggested. The crazy thing that I suggested is that you have to start one of them. You have to start either Cunningham or you have to start Lexie Hull. But anyways, I've talked way too much shit now. So based on my actual projections, I'm just gonna have to give it. I can stall forever, but I have to make a call. So I would say about 19.6 minutes per game. And since field goal attempts, I mean, would she get 5? Can she get 5 in 19.6 minutes? I think she could get 5 off, and that will be more than Lexie Hull. But Sophie Cunningham tends to shoot with a lot more confidence, and so like Lexie Hull, it's a lot more. Lexie Hull is more controlled, meaning that she'll really be judicious as to which type of shots she takes. She'll be wide open, but she'll hesitate a little bit more. Whereas I think Sophie Cunningham is less hesitation. Like if she sees that she's got a shot that she likes, and I don't think there's many shots that she doesn't like, she's gonna take it, which is good, right? It just goes over with that confidence type thing. So I'm gonna give her 5 field goal attempts and field goal percentage. Let's see, field goal percent. I don't know why it was this low, but I think it's gonna be better. I think all of their field goal percentage are gonna increase just based on who they're playing with. I'm gonna give this a 46.8 maybe. 3-point attempts. Well, let's go with. So if she takes, so last year she took 6, and out of those 6, 4.5 with 3-pointers. So if it's 5. Let's say 3.5 are 3-pointers, or 4 are 3. Let's say 4 are 3-pointers, and then she's gonna shoot at an incredible clip. She shoots. She's a 36%. She's a 36% career 3-point shooter. I think that's gonna go up, or at least she's gonna do better. She's gonna do better than last year. Free throw attempts, because we're given 8 less minutes, then maybe 1.2 free throw attempts. She's a career 86%. So let's give her 89. Rebounds, again, 8 less minutes, 3 rebounds per game. Assist, 1.2 assists per game. Steals, about 0.5 steals. Blocks, 0.2 blocks. Not many turnovers. Again, she's not going to be on the floor that much. Points per game. So if we're saying 5 field goal attempts, 4 of them are going to be threes. And she's shooting, so maybe not 2, but maybe 1.5 threes per game, which is 4. And a layup, 6 point, and free throws. Yeah, about 8 points per game. And I mean, I'm surprised that in 27 minutes, she just didn't shoot a lot. That's just interesting to me. Like, she was on the court almost 28 minutes and only shot 6 times per game. In 2020, she played 19 minutes and took 4.3 shots, but she hit him at a terrible clip at 38%. That's the second season that we talked about. 23% from 3, 38% from the field. She wasn't very efficient, and 5 points per game. So here, slightly more minutes. We're projecting better field goal percentage. So 3 more points than that, I think it's fair. Oh yeah, 8 points per game. Usage, I think about the same as last year. Her usage rate for her career is 15.3 usage rate. But last year was, like what we said, 12.8. Her second year, but okay, so if we're projecting 5 field goal attempts in these 19 minutes, that means she's going to be active. So this usage percentage, especially since she's coming off the bench, if you're coming off the bench and you're shooting right away, then your usage is going to go up. So I think this will be around 15% about her career average. Rating, I think these ratings are all going to be amazing. So her highest rating ever was last year, 116. I think we can go with something like maybe higher than that, 118. And her best defensive rating was 106. So maybe we can do 108, 118, 108. Awards, if she comes off the bench, which is what we're projecting, she's got a chance with these numbers, along with Lexie Hull, for 6th player of the year. But where is she going to land? 2 or 3? She's going to get some votes, I think, for 6th player of the year. So this is it. This is my predictions for Sophie Cunningham. Listen, I'm a fan of Sophie. I forgot to mention at the beginning that I watched the 2 games that the Phoenix Mercury played against the Fever, and I was scared of Sophie. Like, she was hitting some crazy shots from all over the place. And also, you could tell the defense, like, she's one of the players that, no kidding, I was like, that's a baller right there. She's really good. So I know her value. I know her impact. I just happen to be, and I'm doing this exercise bias because I happen to be a Lexie Hull fan. And if I have to choose between Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull, now I have to be also neutral, and I have to be fair and realistic. I think those are things, but I think here you can't go wrong, right? So if the team decides that Sophie Cunningham is going to be the one who's going to see the bulk of the minutes, I don't think that's the wrong decision. If they decide that it's Lexie Hull who's going to have the bulk of the minutes off the bench, I don't think that's the wrong decision either. So, it's just going to be that. But the most important thing is, just like I keep mentioning in every video, it's this, more than any other season, it's going to be a season where you're going to have to manage personalities, you're going to have to manage egos, you're going to have to be transparent, be constantly talking and being upfront with your players, whether in this situation, whether that's going to be Lexie Hull or that's going to be Sophie Cunningham, to kind of let them know what, kind of what their plan for them is, and what are they gaining from this. I mean, it could be they could take the easy route. I think the easiest route is to say, Lexie Hull, you're still growing. Although, again, she's in a contract year. So, I mean, it's just so many challenges with Lexie Hull. But going back to that instance, if you're talking to them and you're making this choice, I think just based on Sophie Cunningham being such a veteran in the league, maybe you want to give the nod to her and just kind of talk to Lexie. Hey, you're still growing. We still value you. We still, we understand it's a contract year, but we still think that you're a vital and important piece to go into the future. So we want to develop you as much as possible and be part of everything that we're doing. I think that's going to be important, at least for her confidence, for her future. That she can see that there's a future, that there's going to come a time where she is going to be counted upon, that she is going to be in the starting lineup, all of these different things, right? So, but this, to me, because of the natural growth progression for Lexie Hull right now, typically you see 4th year is the year where players start to take off. That was the case for Sophie Cunningham. That's almost the case for Lexie Hull, and it's not like she's shown that she's earned it, in my opinion. Some people think that she hasn't, but again, I think she has. So, but again, I didn't mean to make this a Sophie versus Lexie type of thing. I think it's great that they have both. Like I said prior as well, if you ask me, what I would do is I would start Lexie and have Natasha. I mean, if you see my Natasha Howard video, I kind of proposed the coming off the bench because of her usage rate. So have Natasha Howard come off the bench, Lexie Hull start. Sophie and Natasha Howard are your, and they're not competing because they're different positions, right? So they're not competing for the same position. When you have two bench players who share the same position, it just gets clunky. But if you have Lexie and Sophie, you can use them both interchangeably. And when Lexie's not on the floor, Sophie's on the floor, vice versa. And then you can even do that with Bonner and Howard as well. When Bonner's not on the court, Howard's on the court type thing. And now you can kind of use them a little bit better. Everything flows a little bit better. But anyway, what do I know? Not much. I'm just playing around, trying to get a glimpse of what next year is gonna look like. That's it for the video. Please make sure to like if you enjoyed this type of content and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.